Well, hello, readers. Trisha Goyer here, and I'm here with my friend Tracy Higley. So, welcome, Tracy.
Hello, thank you for having me.
I love that we just get to hang out today, and you're my awesome friend. We've known each other. How old is your that's because I met you after you had one of your children. So, however old he is, that's how
Yeah,
long I've known you.
so he'll be 20 next month.
Yeah, so
So
we've known each other for
20
20
years.
years. I
Yeah.
love that so much. So for those who may not be familiar with Tracy, why don't you just start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, all right. Well, I've been writing and publishing for about that same amount of time, about 20 years, a little bit more. Mostly fiction, almost all entirely fiction, and almost all historical suspense.
Mhm.
Some of it's contemporary. I usually find a way to weave history in there, so some archaeology and things like that. Most of the history that I do is ancient history, so I love Greece, Rome, Egypt, all those ancient cultures. Um, Besides that, I'm a mom of four, and I have one grandson, a 2-year-old, and run a business on the side as well. And although I'm gradually stepping away from that and
Yeah.
handing it off to my son, so that's pretty cool.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, that's pretty much the overview.
I love it. I've always enjoyed your books. Okay. But this one, Tracy, oh my gosh, I love it so much. Every time I'm not done yet all the way. Uh, every time I read it, I'm like, I love this concept. I love the garden. I want to go to the garden. I want to hang out with the people. It's okay. So tell me, because it's different than your other stuff. Like, where did you get the idea? I'm gonna just hold this up because this cover is also gorgeous. Nighttime in the Garden of Deep Time. I'm just loving this. Is gonna be like one of my favorite books ever. I'm just loving it so much.
Oh, thank you. Wow, thanks. Yeah, it definitely is a little bit different than most of the books that I've done. I have done some books that have kind of a fantastical element to them. I've done some time travel, things like that. So this one I would say is more kind of magical realism, maybe
Mhm.
if I had to define the genre. But there's some history woven in there too.
Yes.
As far as where I got the idea, it really actually kind of birthed out of this really weird sort of writing exercise thing that I did. Was actually kind of fun. I'm not really one for writing exercises. I always feel like the words are so hard won. I don't want to write anything that isn't for real. It's not
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
actually stick somewhere, and it's going to just be for practice. I don't really like to do that. But I was ready to write the next book, and I was just trying to think about, okay, what do I want to write? And so I thought, I don't know, I'm just going to start making this big, huge list of everything that I love. And I didn't really define that any more specifically than things I love. So I started making this list and a document of just, it was like words and ideas and images and some movies or stories or plot ideas, like motifs, that kind of thing, tropes. Um, and when it got to about 75 things, which I was over the course of a few weeks, I printed them all out and I cut them all up into individual slips of paper and I folded them in half and I stuck them all in this bowl.
Oh my
And
god.
then,
I
yeah,
love this so much. I so want to do this now.
it was really kind of cool. So it's basically this bowl full of everything that I love. So everything that I could think of. And so then every day what I started to do just to kind of get the juices flowing creatively was I would start the morning by pulling 2 out at random. And first I would just kind of free write about why I wrote that thing down, like what I loved about it. And then I would try to force myself to think of some story idea that would connect these 2 completely random
Right.
things. Because our brains are like that,
Yeah.
they can make connections when there really aren't any connections. So some of the ideas were, outlandish and just would never work. But I would just kind of mess around with that for a little while. And then when I ran out of steam on that, I would sometimes pull out a third slip of paper and try to figure how that could fit with the other 2. And I would just write for a little while. But I only was doing it for probably a week or 2 before I started seeing this pattern emerging. And the thing that was emerging was that I just had this real fascination with secret places, portals to places, things that look ordinary, but that kind of pull you into some kind of adventure or quest or something that, you didn't realize was there. And a lot of things about just kind of exploring your identity, about being creative, all of that. And then a lot of things about secret gardens and things like that. So it was interesting because as I was writing all those things in the exercise I was doing, they all seemed different. But then as I was pulling them out, I was like, okay, there's really some strong threads here that are, some of these almost seem like repeats because they're so similar. And so anyway, it took a week or two before like just this story idea started forming about this secret garden that only the main character has access to, and kind of stumbles into accidentally, and then starts meeting all these interesting people who are challenging her in her creative life. So that's how it came about.
So, and I think hearing you say that, I'm like, okay, this is why I love this book so much. And literally, I love this book. I love this book. Why I love it so much is things I love. Like there's the bookshop, and then there's these creative people. I'm trying to figure out, not want to give too much away, but this creative people that she meets. And because it was so fun revealing them, like me trying to figure it out and then seeing who they are. So that's why I want to mention who they are. But creative people, and
from the
then
past. We can say creative people from the past that
creative people from the past that she's able to interact with. And so I am currently with my kids. We're doing, we just finished The Secret Garden. And so as I'm reading out loud with my kids The Secret Garden, I'm reading this. It was like this moment in time where I'm like, this is the perfect thing that's matching up. So I'm explaining these themes and stuff to the kids, and new life and growth. It's not just this garden. It's like this deadness that she had and this new life. And then I'm reading your books. It was like this perfect combination. But even stuff like the bookshop has, you walk through the wardrobe to go into the children's department. I'm like, I want this bookshop. I want to go. And then they're talking about leveling the bookshop. I'm like, no. And so it's just so many things. But I think there's like this special depth for if you love like literary stuff, because you have a quote at the beginning that's really like, it's just so I'm gonna start over as soon as I get done, because there's just so much richness. But I had a question, because one of your historical people from the past asks the main character Kelsey this question, which I just love. And okay, so Tracy, what was your story wanting to say? Because he asked her this, and she's like, what is my story wanting to say? And I'm like, I need to put that down on a sticky note every time I write a book and say, what is this book wanting to say? So now I'm asking you, what is this book wanting to say?
Yeah, when my main character gets asked that question, she doesn't have an answer to it. She's kind of like, well, I don't know. It's not fully grown. It doesn't really know what it wants to say yet. But I think there's a lot of different themes that I wanted to address in the book. And part of it is what you were just referring to, just kind of the coming back to life, finding life again, like in that secret garden kind of way. But I would say that the main thing that the story is trying to say is really just talking about the life of the artist, the life of the artistic creative person, and what kinds of obstacles and fears and things that hold us back and questions and just even difficulties like trying to balance family life and duty and responsibility and all those things with wanting to pursue something creative and maybe not necessarily seeing the results of it, or not getting the affirmation, or not finding success. But does that make it not legitimate? And what, as artists, as creatives, what is our responsibility in the face of all of that? The risk it is, the fear, the obstacles, all of that. Do we have, which obviously I believe we do have a responsibility to bring that gift to the world and explore it. But it's really not easy to do that for a lot of different reasons. And so that's really the question I was asking, is how do you do that? How do you get brave enough or find time or any of those things to really pursue those creative gifts? And I think that's why I am finding that the book is really resonating with a lot of people. And you're not the first person to tell me that they wanted to start over again as soon as they finished.
I totally do. Like, I just love it so much. Yeah.
So I think it just really is kind of hitting people who are creative and who have kind of felt a lot of those things and wrestled with a lot of those things. And it's not that I had like all the answers, in a lot of ways I don't. I'm still struggling with all those things myself. But I think just to give voice to them and to really address the fact that those things are there and we have to push through them.
Yeah. So, for those, just an overview of the book. So Kelsey has this bookshop, and she was been raised by this grandmother we'll say it like that, since this grandmother that is now in assisted living. And so she's threatening, or the bookshop, the city's threatening to take it over. So she has this physical issue with, they're going to lose this wonderful bookshop. People don't appreciate it anymore. It's not the new cool upcoming thing as, this cool coffee shop or whatever. And so that's the present danger in the moment. And then she's also struggling with finances and bills. And then there's this part as in the secret garden is like, what is really important? You need to offer your gifts. You need to lay out your gifts. And these people from history, these creative people from history, are talking about the gifts they laid out. And it's this battle of, but there's this real and present danger. And I need to solve this problem with this, like, no, you were born for something different, something more. You need to explore those things. With that first, she's like, there's no connection. Like, I cannot think about like these gifts in my story and all these things when there's this real and present danger. And so, I think the first part is just like, how can these things, how can they come together? And I think in our lives, and that's part, I'm so glad you're saying like, what do you have to offer? And all of us have these things to offer, because in our lives, there's very present issues that are pressing around us at all time, and to stop and think like, oh, I have something to offer. Is it even worth it? I don't know. There's these other people that are doing all these awesome creative things, but I can't do those things. And so I love that it's like the story's laid out kind of the struggle that each of us have as we're considering our creative natures. And I'm actually reading through Exodus as I'm doing my daily Bible podcast, and it was talking about Bezalel. I don't even know how you say his name. And
I love that passage.
yeah, and the Spirit of God was on him to create these things.
Yes.
And it's like, this is not just like, oh yeah, I have some people and they could kind of do this work. No, the Spirit of God was on him. And that's what this book is like. God has put this creative thing in you. And I think all of us are creative in different ways, like writing or art or hospitality or being a really good friend. Like, it doesn't have to be just a physical thing that you're showing people, but we often hinder that because there is so much pressing needs going on. So as you're like thinking of the story arc, this journey with Kelsey, what were the things that you were thinking of when you have this like real and present danger with discovering this inner creative part of us?
Yeah, I think there's one character who kind of serve. Well, there's a number of characters who kind of serve as a little bit of a mentor for her, but there's one in particular who she kind of expresses that too. Like, I can't be thinking of these things that are really more like a hobby. I can't be going down that road and really putting time into that, because I have this other thing over here that, I have to take care of her and pay her bills, and I got the bookshop and all that. And she kind of puts that out to this mentor, kind of like, see, here's the impossibility. And he basically just says, yep. Like, because I think that's where we land. That's where we land, is that there is no real easy answer. There's no way we can just say, oh yeah, shove aside all that duty and responsibility and all the practical day-to-day concerns and just focus on your art, whatever that is, or your creativity. If it's not the visual arts or music or writing, like you said, it could be making jewelry, or it could be cooking, or anything that we really want to kind of pour our heart and soul into. We can't just shove aside all the practical stuff and just focus on that, but we also can't shove that aside.
Yeah.
Focus on, like, we just can't. It's a dichotomy that we have to somehow, manage this tension, and we can't just, there really is no solution. We just have to do it. We just have to kind of, wander our way through it, I think, and find a way.
Yeah. And I think it feeds our soul. So I wrote about this in my book, Heart Happy, that just came out, that God put these things in us. Like, when I was little, I would draw all the time. I was reading all these books all the time, like drawing and reading, what I say would be the two, more than anything else. I wasn't watching TV. I was drawing and I was reading. And so, because God created me to enjoy those things. And so now as an adult, yes, I can cook for my family, do all these things. But when I start feeling drained, actually writing and drawing, like, it helps me. So people say, how can you write all these books with all the kids and all the things? But when I'm drained, when I can get into a story or research something, it actually feeds me. So it's work. And there's days, we know, Tracy, like the editing and stuff, like there's the work, but it feeds me. And yesterday I was feeling so drained and overwhelmed. Like, I'm just going to sketch for a minute and like do some watercolor painting. And this is what I did.
Ooh,
but Honestly, it was because I felt drained and
Yeah.
overwhelmed. And it was just funny. My watch said that I was napping during that time. Later, I'm like, what is it saying? But I think I was so like, it just settled me so
Your
much and just,
heart rate slowed down
uh-huh.
maybe, and
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, I didn't take a nap. I was painting. And it was like this 30-minute window of time. It said I was napping.
Huh.
And I think that just went to
Yeah.
show me like I needed that. And I
Yeah.
knew, and now that I'm older, it's like yes, the house is still messy. I haven't done laundry in 3 days, but I need this. It's gonna help me. It's
Yeah.
gonna pull me through. And so, I mean, the story is so well written, and it just is like talking about all these things that we're talking about, but in these characters that I love them. I want to know them. I want to go eat the food with them. Like, let me just stay in here and just be part of this. And I love it so much.
Thank you. I did try to, like, like I said, even at the beginning with the kind of the exercise that I was doing, that it was born out of, it was everything that I loved. So it did feel like I was just like pouring everything,
Oh,
like the dream kind of thing into this place, from the food and I love to garden. Gardening for me is kind of what you were talking about with the drawing
yeah.
and the painting. It's work, it's hard work, but that, flower gardening is something that really refuels me and, fills me up. So yeah, so the flowers and the gardening and the, so I can say that the garden that she stumbles into is in the middle of the city, and it's in this empty lot that's connected to the bookshop. And so she goes in there, and it's basically bigger on the inside
Mhm.
than it should be. And
Because it's
so,
this mystical
yeah,
fantasy place, this
yeah,
world, yeah.
yeah. So creating kind of all the like little areas in the garden for her to, stumble
Yeah,
into and explore and all of that. Yeah, it's just kind of like, if I could make my own little world, this is what it would be
I
like.
know, and then like, all of a sudden, there's a sword, a guy with a sword. You're like, what is happening? So I think that's the fun part. It's like you care about her and you care about the bookshop, but then all of a sudden I like am in this garden and it's like almost relaxing and peaceful, and there's
Mm.
these wise people saying things, and so I feel in like it's like fueling and feeding me. And then, oh yeah, but we have to worry about the bookshop again. Like, there's it's the story is definitely like you're worried about these characters. You want to know what's going to happen, but there's also these moments of enjoying the ride. And I think sometimes like we read books for different reasons. We might read a suspense because we like want to solve the mystery and we want to know what's going to happen. It's fast paced. And I
Mhm.
think yours is a mix of, yes, we want to know what's going to happen. We want to follow these characters. We want to see how this problem is solved. But there's also these moments of, let me think about that. Like, I'll just put down the book from it, like, wow, that's a good like, let me ponder this for a moment. So it's this journey within a journey within the book. So
And you
yeah.
said that you're not all the way through to the end
No,
yet.
I'm not all the way through yet. Yeah.
So yeah, so there's good surprises at the end too. I can't wait to hear what
Okay.
you think of
Oh, yeah. I'll be like, I'd have your number. I'll be texting like, oh my
it.
goodness. This is so good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is my book I'm reading on my exercise bike.
Mm.
So I will put more time. This tells you how much I like the book. I will put more time and keep exercising so I can keep reading the book.
Well, that's like the highest compliment ever, probably,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
People tell me they skip laundry for reading my books all the time, but wanting to exercise more, that's even better.
Yeah, I felt like, wow, I got double the time in today because I wanted to keep reading. So good. Okay, so are you gonna write more books like this, or can you
Yeah,
get your little jar out again, Tracy?
I think I
Like,
will. I was looking through it the other day because I was thinking, did I use up everything? Because like I knew there was like 75 or 80 things in there, and I thought I can't have used them all. That's for sure. So yeah, so I was looking at that again and thinking about what's next. I'm kind of working on an idea that's like more of a like a cozy mystery almost, but
oh yeah,
not super cozy, like a little darker than that. But like I'd like to write a mystery series, which I've never done before. Like a lot of suspense, but not like more like a whodunit
right.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
That would be fun. But I also might write a sequel to this book actually, because there's, well, I won't say, but there's someone else that could have their own story in the garden. So, um,
Mm.
yeah, so I might write a sequel. I don't know.
Mm,
We'll see.
I please, yes. I'm just saying right now, yes, please, and I will text you and see if you're working on it yet. Um, but I think so when I posted, I think it was on my private page or my Facebook page. I don't remember where I posted it, but I posted the cover for something like this cover is beautiful, and I just started, and I got so many comments like, I love that book. That's such an amazing book. I
Mhm.
didn't want to put it down. So it definitely is striking a nerve. And you get that with a lot of books, but I don't know. It's just I think it's just special. It's a very special book. So eh,
Thanks.
yeah.
I do feel like the main response as I've been talking to like book clubs and things like that is just that people are feeling like, I don't know, like a sense of permission to pursue the things they
Mhm.
love that maybe they felt a little blocked over. It just didn't feel like maybe weren't feeling like their gifts were legitimate, and that this was really encouraging to them to just kind of like sink into their own
Mhm.
gifts and feel that permission to press into them more.
Yeah, and that's a cool thing because you could hear it in a nonfiction speaker. You know what I mean? Someone's getting up there, like tells you, like, you really need to sit down and blah blah blah. But I think going on this journey,
Hmm.
you see, like, oh, this is important. Oh, these are offerings, and oh, yeah, this everyone benefits from these. It's just a cool thing, and also to think that these creative people in history that we're just gonna throw out like Charles Dickens. We're just gonna name. I'm not gonna give out more names, but like they probably had like struggles and different things going on and just
Hmm.
they were having to make choices too about creative and following the things that were on their hearts. It wasn't just like everything was easy all the time. And they appreciate when people appreciate their work. And so anyway, it's cool. It's cool to see this journey in fiction. I think it's very unique, but it's so well written that I just loved it. So yes, please. Yes, please. Okay, so I want to also definitely go and get this. I'm gonna hold it up again. Go buy this book. Love it so much. But what are some other books that you've written? I know we've talked to you before, but maybe if they're just hearing about you or wanting to know more, what are some other things that they can look for and
Okay.
they can check out?
Yeah. So if you like kind of more of the fantastical side of things, or the magical side, I last year I wrote a time travel trilogy. So it's about a archaeologist in 1922 who's part of the dig team on King Tut's discovery. So they're about to
Mm.
discover King Tut's tomb, and she gets time traveled, pulled back into ancient Egypt, and there's a whole big mystery there. She's trying to figure out what happened to her parents who died, and so anyway, it's a big mystery.
Okay,
So
so what are those? What are the titles for those?
yeah, a time to seek, a time to weep, and a time to love. So it's the time travel journals of Sahara Aldridge is the main character. So that's a pretty fun one. I had fun writing them, although it's a little brain twisting to write time travel, and yeah, it was super confusing. But those are fun. And then my ones that are more just straight historical, set in the ancient world. So a little
Mhm.
bit of a flavor of biblical fiction. They don't always have Bible characters, so I wouldn't necessarily characterize them as biblical fiction, but they kind of have that feel to them. So I wrote a series of so far 5 books, each set in one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. So there's 5 of them, 7 wonders books so far. And then I've written a couple lost cities books, so Pompeii and Petra. Again, they're all historical suspense, set in these ancient settings.
Yeah, and they're very much more fast paced, and there's something going on, and there's danger, and
Yeah.
very. I mean, yeah, love them, love them. But the cool thing is that you got to travel there, and you got to be in
Yeah.
those places, and you got to experience those things, which I think you can really tell when someone's like been there and
Mhm.
experienced it. Even though it's historical, I mean, you get so much of the place and how things feel and stuff from being there. So that's fun that you were able to go there and experience just those areas.
Yeah. Yep. I've been to I think pretty much every setting other than the Babylon book, because that's kind of Baghdad. So I haven't gone
You
there.
don't wanna go
Gone to
to that.
Baghdad. I skipped that one. But
Yeah.
besides that, yeah, I've been to Egypt a couple times and Rome a couple of times, and yeah, Greece and Israel and all around. So yeah, and tried to bring back the feelings, like you said,
Mhm.
I really setting is always really a big part of what I write. It kind of is a jumping off point a lot of times for my stories. And so I really do love to make people feel like they've traveled there, like they've been on a journey to that place.
Yep, and you mentioned 5 of the 7 wonders. That's
Mhm.
one question when I said, "What questions do you have for Tracy?" A couple people said, "Is she gonna finish the 7 Wonders series?"
Yeah. So, I mean, in the way of publishing that was kind of strange where, that was a series I wrote with one publisher, then I wasn't with that publisher anymore. So like to continue it on didn't really make sense. But then last year I was able to get the rights back to those books. So now I own the rights to them. So I do then have, a more logical, sensible, path to finishing that out. So yeah, probably someday. It's not up next. I think I'm waiting for it to just kind of hit me and yeah, feel motivated or inspired, I guess, by the last two wonders that I haven't hit yet. But one of which is a tomb. So it's kind of hard to get really excited about a tomb, but
yes.
I gotta find a good story around that. But yeah, someday.
Yeah. Well, you have to write the sequel to this one first.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. Maybe I should just be thinking on that. I haven't much, but yeah.
Come on, Tracy. Like, get to work. What are you doing? What are you working?
Yeah, well, I don't write, 10,000 words while I'm sleeping like you do. So I have to think these things through.
It's not when I'm sleeping. It's when I'm like, oh my goodness, the deadline is getting closer, and I really have to get this. But what I love is like, I mean, these are different genres, and I love like now that you're thinking of mystery and stuff. And I think because we're talking about creative people, I think it's fun to try something different and try something new. So that's what you're like, well, I could do the 7 Wonders, but it's like, well, let me try a mystery. Like, it's almost like we need to figure these things out and try these things because we have fun on the journey. And I think that's part of it.
Yeah, which isn't always, the advice you'll get sometimes I'm sure it's true in other, other industries besides publishing, but a lot of times you hear in publishing that, you got to like pick a lane and stick with it. And
I am so out of the lane.
I know that is not your philosophy for sure. But you do hear that a lot. Like if you want to try to make any kind of inroads, into anything, like just pick a genre or pick a style or whatever and stick with it. And I just kind of feel like life's too short and this is too much fun, like exploring and learning and trying things. And yeah, being on that journey is too much fun for me to like sacrifice the joy I get out of it from, for the marketability of it or whatever. So
yeah. I that's what I feel too. Like if I would have stayed in one lane, it probably would have had this huge readership. Well, I'm hoping of one thing, but I'm having fun and I'm enjoying what I'm doing. And like you, it's like, let's try this. Let's do this.
And contributing to different things, like if you had just stuck with one thing, that means that all those other things you've created wouldn't have gotten created, and they all had a purpose and readers that needed to read them. So yeah. So I think, and it kind of circles back to the whole theme of this book is that, these creative gifts that we have, that like they have to be honored. They're not just about the reception that they get or the affirmation they get or the sales they make or whatever. It's a lot bigger than that. It's nice if we get sales. It's nice if we get affirmation and all those things. But there's something bigger at play with the creative gifts that we've been given that we really have to honor.
Yeah. So good. Okay. So if you were going to go into a secret garden, what creative historical person would you want to meet up with and what would you eat?
And what would I eat?
When I was reading all the food, I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to eat this food so bad.
Let's see. Well, it's funny. I was on a call last night with a book club who had done the book, and they were asking me about some of the people. So there's quotes from different people at the beginning of each chapter as well, but they're not the people that are in the garden. And so they were asking me like, "Oh, you have quotes from C.S. Lewis, and you didn't put C.S. Lewis in the garden." And I was thinking, I think I was like out of pure intimidation of like trying to write him as a character. I don't know, but I think that's somebody I would want to meet. I don't know, like, him, probably all the Inklings. I think that would just be cool.
Yes, let's just go sit and explain that for those who may not be familiar with that. But yes, please, I would be there.
So C.S. Lewis was part of a little group of people who were, a creative group who got together and read each other's manuscripts and critiqued each other. And so J.R.R. Tolkien was part of that group, and Dorothy Sayers, and just Charles Williams, different people that, so just like a powerhouse of creativity and, even like in the fantasy realm and mystery realm, like they just were all so imaginative and creative, and they got together in this back room in a pub in England. And, that I could think that would be pretty cool. If I could make like a little part of the garden where they could all hang out and I could just hang out with them.
Ooh, maybe that needs to be in the next book.
There we go. Ooh, that's a good idea. Good idea.
Invite me though.
Invite you? Okay, you can come too. You and I will be there with everybody else. Okay.
Yeah.
And food wise, I'm not sure, but it would probably involve either chocolate or like some kind of Italian food, like something like some amazing pasta dish.
like even that, like they put a piece of salmon on top of all that plate. That was who, yeah. Anyway, I'm like, that even sounds good. Like I just want the food in this garden. It was so good. Yeah. So but I love that. And I think like you mentioned the Inklings. I'm also listening on audiobook with The Hobbit with my 12-year-old son. And I'm like, how does he come up with this stuff? But when you think about the people he was hanging around with, and
Right.
C.S. Lewis is coming with this horse that turns into a flying horse and like Fledge and turns, it's just like all these things that if you're around creative people, and I think that's again back to your book, she's in the
Mhm.
garden around creative people, it kind of gives you permission to be
Mhm.
more creative. And so as we're wrapping this up, I'm thankful for your friendship and all my creative friends over the years. We could just encourage each other and like, yes, be creative, yes, try this, yes, do these things. And I think people maybe as readers don't understand that we like support each other and cheer each other on and like, ooh, yeah, do that,
Mhm.
because
Yep.
we love being part of this creative community.
Yeah. Yep. For sure. And community is a really important part of the creative life. I do believe that.
Yep. Okay, so for those who want to check out for sure this book and your other books, where can they go for more information?
So books are available everywhere books are available, but find me on my website. It's Tracy, Tracy, Higley, Higley.com. And yeah, I've got all my travel journals there. You can kind of see my adventures around the world, and information about all the books is there too. Yep.
All right. Well, thank you, Tracy, for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you. It was fun.